I recently picked up a Kindle 3 with a keyboard from eBay for 14 quid, and I originally bought this with the intention of just trialing out a Kindle to see if I could get on with an e-ink display. So I never intended to keep it long. I was just going to buy it and resell it, and then if I got on with an e-ink display, I was going to upgrade to a newer Kindle. But if I'm being completely honest with you, after using this Kindle for a few weeks now, I have no desire to upgrade to a more expensive Kindle, as this just does everything that I want a Kindle to do. So in 2023, I think that the Kindle 3 is still a fantastic buy. However, there are a few caveats to owning this Kindle, which I will discuss in this video. So I'm going to give you an overview of how this Kindle holds up 13 years later, so you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you want to go ahead and buy one. So I'll quickly start off with price. As I mentioned, I bought this for 14 quid, and you can get them on eBay for about 10 to 25 pounds. And I think within this price range, you're getting yourself an absolute bargain, especially considering that a new cheap Kindle is 100 quid. So moving on to the hardware. The front of this Kindle features a 6-inch e-ink display, and whilst this might not be the sharpest display, especially compared to the likes of your iPhone, it's actually perfectly good for reading books. This display isn't a colour display, so perhaps not ideal for comic books or graphic novels, etc. But for most people, this display will do a good job. There's no inbuilt backlight, so you're going to have to use this with a light on, which really isn't a big deal because obviously this is the same as a normal book. And I've really enjoyed using this Kindle and reading from it. It doesn't strain my eyes one bit, and it genuinely feels really quite similar to reading a book on the eyes. I'll be honest with you, e-ink displays haven't got that much better since this Kindle was released. So I'm sure there are improvements on the newer Kindles, but this isn't a bad experience by any means. This Kindle that I've got has been really well looked after, so everything's in good working order without any obvious damage or scratches. The keyboard is fine for searching for books in your library, but I do find it a little bit fiddly to use. I've got a ridiculously long password on my Amazon with numbers, special characters, symbols, etc. just for security, and I've not logged on to Amazon on this Kindle just because I can't type the password in properly. I find it way too frustrating. One little mistake and you've got to try and type it all again. So the keyboard is fine for like searching for books. However, I did find it a little bit frustrating trying to log on with a more complex password. And that isn't a big deal because the store doesn't even work on the Kindle, which I will discuss in a moment. Finally, this Kindle has 4 GB of storage, which really doesn't sound like much, but for most people, this is going to be more than enough. With 4 GB of storage, you can store between 2,000 and 3,000 books. I don't know about you, but that's probably more books than I'm going to ever read in a lifetime. Ultimately, the hardware on this Kindle just doesn't feel like a device that was released 13 years ago. When I bought this, I didn't know how old this Kindle was. It was only when I started doing research for this video that I realised it was 13 years old. I would have put it at maybe 5 years old. It's still really good hardware in 2023. So let's move on to the software experience and the reading experience. So the first thing to note here is that the store does not work on the Kindle. So you cannot go onto this Kindle and buy a book directly from it. That is not a thing that Amazon still supports. However, it's really not a big deal, so if you do log on to the Kindle with Amazon, you can load onto it books that you've purchased on the website or on your mobile phone. For me, as I mentioned, I'm not even logged into Amazon on this Kindle. I just plug it into my laptop and drag and drop books onto the Kindle. So there are a ton of classic books available online for free and legally. So the copyright on these books has expired and therefore they're just in the public domains. So you can download a .mobi file and just drag and drop it into your Kindle all legally. So for example, I'm currently reading 1984 by George Orwell for the first time. Absolutely loving it, but this was a book that cost me nothing very legally, and there's just such a big catalogue of classic books that you can read for free. So for 14 quid, you've pretty much got unlimited legal books, or you can just buy books on various websites and again copy and paste it over to the Kindle. In terms of file types, this Kindle doesn't support .epub files, and this is the most common type of file for ebooks. However, it does support .mobi files, which is otherwise known as like a Kindle file or PDFs. Personally, I don't recommend just trying to read a book that you've downloaded off the internet and you've downloaded a PDF, as the formatting is all weird. You can't change the font sizes or anything like that. I definitely look to find a .mobi file that you're going to put onto this Kindle, so the formatting is all fine and you can adjust the font size as and when you want to. Generally, whilst using the Kindle to read a book and click through pages is a pretty good experience. Sure, it may take half a second after pressing the next page button for the screen to refresh, and the screen does go black whilst changing pages, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And also, bigger books can take a few seconds to open, but again, this just isn't a big deal when you think you can store thousands of books all for about 14 quid, and a lot of these books can be obtained free and legally. So I still think this offers you a really good reading experience, and whilst obviously it's not going to be as fast as the latest iPhone or the latest Kindle, it's still a good experience, especially for 14 quid. So finally, let's take a look at battery life. Battery life was originally rated at 10 days of pretty heavy use, which you're obviously not going to get now because the battery's been degraded, although I'm not really finding that my battery's that bad. So I've only charged this once since I've owned it, and I've pretty much finished 1984 by George Orwell, and I've still got 3/4 of the battery life left, and it's been on standby for about 2 weeks. I found for this particular Kindle that the battery life isn't that bad. However, if you do buy one with a degraded battery, you can buy a battery changing kit on eBay or Amazon or other websites for about 15 to 20 quid. And whilst this does double the price of the Kindle, it's a relatively easy thing to install yourself, and it will just get you maximum use and value from this Kindle. So to conclude, I think that this Kindle is a really good buy in 2023, especially for the price tag. If you want the convenience of just traveling with the Kindle and buying books on it whilst you're out and about, then it's not going to be for you. But as long as you're aware that the store on the device no longer works and you're happy with that, it's fine. You can copy and paste books, or you can load books onto the Kindle on the app. And it's still a great reading experience. And for someone like me who's previously been a big fan of audiobooks, it's been a great way for me to get into reading because I've not previously been a big reader myself. I like to have the books read to me, if I'm being honest. So I've really enjoyed the experience with this Kindle, especially for how little money that I've spent. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoy your Kindle. Cheers.